There is a silence at the center of history, a void where a scream should be. We walk through the ruins of empires, believing we are looking at the foundation of human achievement, but we are mistaken. We are looking at a crime scene that has been scrubbed clean by the gentle erosion of time and the deliberate stroke of a censor's pen. If you listen closely to the static between the radio stations of the past, if you squint at the gray space between the monumental dates we are taught to memorize in school, you begin to see the outline of something else. It is a negative space, a shadow cast by an object that has been removed from the room. We call this object the redacted manuscript, though it is not a singular physical document. It is a recurring absence. It is the single idea that civilization was built to hide. Imagine for a moment that the structure of our reality is not a natural formation, but an architectural construct designed for containment. We are accustomed to thinking of civilization as a ladder, a vertical ascent from the mud of the primeval riverbanks to the chrome and glass of the mesosphere. We are told that we traded our wild freedoms for safety, for agriculture, for written language, and for law. This is the story etched into the marble of our capitals and printed in the gloss of our textbooks. But there is a flaw in the narrative, a jagged seam running down the center of the tapestry. Why does every civilization, regardless of its geography or its epoch, inevitably structure itself into a pyramid of control? Why do the same symbols of dominance emerge in the rainforests of the Yucatan and the deserts of Mesopotamia, separated by oceans and millennia? The standard answer is human nature. We are told that we are hierarchical animals, wolves in designer suits, destined to organize ourselves into alphas and betas, masters and servants. But the redacted manuscript suggests a different causality. It suggests that the hierarchy is not an expression of our nature, but a suppression of it. The investigative mind must adopt a clinical detachment here. We must strip away the romance of history. Forget the heroic generals and the benevolent queens. Look at the mechanics. Look at the energy grid of human society. It is designed to extract, to channel, and to limit. Consider the invention of agriculture. We are taught to view the Neolithic Revolution as the great leap forward, the moment humanity unlocked the code of abundance. Yet the forensic anthropology tells a darker story. The first farmers were smaller, sicker, and shorter lived than the hunter-gatherers they replaced. Their bones show the stress fractures of repetitive labor. Their teeth show the decay of a grain-heavy diet. Why would a species voluntarily trade a life of relative leisure and high-protein abundance for a life of back-breaking toil and malnutrition? The official record says we did it for stability. The redacted manuscript whispers that we did not do it at all. It whispers that we were corralled. This brings us to the first terrifying implication of the single idea. If civilization is a cage, who built it? This is where the mind recoils, seeking the comfort of aliens or gods or secret societies. But the truth is far more disturbing because it is far more intimate. We built it. We built it to protect ourselves from ourselves. The single idea, the dangerous thought that must be hidden at all costs, is that human consciousness in its raw, unfettered state is a chaotic force capable of unraveling the fabric of physical reality. We are not the inhabitants of the universe. We are the glitch within it. Walk with me through the corridors of the Library of Alexandria before the fire. Imagine the scrolls that were lost. We mourn them as lost literature, lost plays, lost histories. But what if the burning was not a tragedy, but a protocol? What if the fire was a sanitation measure? Throughout history, every time a culture begins to approach the threshold of the single idea, a catastrophe occurs. The Bronze Age collapse, the burning of the Mayan codices, the systematic eradication of the Gnostic texts. These are not accidents of history. They are autoimmune responses. The system detects a breach. The system detects that the inmates are beginning to understand the nature of the prison. And so, the system reboots. The clinical term for this might be a containment breach. We see echoes of it in the psychological breaks of individuals who delve too deep into the esoteric. Madness is often described as a detachment from reality. But what if it is an intrusion of too much reality? The shaman, the mystic, the schizophrenic, they are often seeing the same thing. They are seeing the gears behind the curtain. Civilization acts as a filter, a pair of polarized sunglasses designed to block out the blinding glare of our true potential. It narrows the bandwidth of our perception. It gives us jobs, mortgages, wars, and sports to keep our processing. We're occupied. It is a distributed computing system designed to calculate anything except the escape code. Let us look at the structure of time itself. We measure it in seconds, minutes, hours. We bind our biological rhythms to the mechanical ticking of the clock. This was the great innovation of the industrial age, the commodification of moments. But time, as experienced by the conscious mind, is fluid. It stretches during trauma and contracts during joy. The imposition of rigid, linear time is a psychological dam. It forces the ocean of human consciousness into a narrow canal, driving the turbines of industry. The redacted manuscript posits that, without these artificial constraints, human perception would not be linear. We would experience the past, present, and future as a simultaneous landscape. We would not be trapped in the tyranny of the present moment. This non-linear perception is what the ancient mystery schools hinted at. It is what the alchemists sought in their transmutation of lead to gold. The lead was never metal. The lead was the heavy, dense state of conditioned consciousness. The gold was the enlightened state, the realization of the timeless self. But notice how these schools were always driven underground. Notice how they were labeled heretics, witches, subversives. The mechanism of civilization cannot tolerate a population that operates outside of linear time. How can you tax a man who sees the future? How can you threaten a woman who knows that death is merely a doorway to another room? You cannot. Therefore, the knowledge must be redacted. The investigation leads us now to the architecture of our cities. Look at the grid, the right angle, the imposing verticality of the skyscraper. These forms are not found in nature. Nature builds in fractals, in curves, in chaotic organized complexity. The city is a geometric imposition, a sigil of order stamped onto the chaotic earth. It serves to disrupt the natural resonance of the human biofield. We feel this when we leave the city and enter the deep forest or the desert. We feel a sudden decompression, a quietude that is not just the absence of noise, but the absence of signal interference. The city is a broadcasting tower, constantly transmitting the frequency of the social contract. Be productive, be orderly, be afraid. Fear is the mortar that holds the bricks of the redacted history together. It is the primary tool of the control system, but it is not just fear of punishment or fear of death. It is the fear of the unknown within us. We are terrified of our own interiority. We fill every silent moment with noise, with scrolling screens, with chatter. Why? Because in the silence, the redacted manuscript begins to write itself on the back of our eyelids. In the silence, we feel the hum of the latent power we have agreed to forget. Let us examine the concept of language. We believe language allows us to communicate, and it does, but it also limits what can be thought. If there is no word for a concept, that concept becomes almost impossible to hold in the mind. The languages of civilization are utilitarian. They are designed for commerce, for law, for technical instruction. They are binary, good and evil, self and other, subject and object. But there were older languages, primal languages, that were holistic. They did not separate the observer from the observed. To speak a word was to invoke the essence of the thing itself. This is the root of the idea of the magic spell, the word of power. Civilizations systematically destroyed these languages, replacing them with the dead tongues of bureaucracy. By limiting our vocabulary, the architects limited our reality. There is a dossier in this investigation that we must open, labeled the Great Filter. In astrophysics, the Great Filter is the hypothetical barrier that prevents civilizations from becoming interstellar. It is usually imagined as a nuclear war or an environmental collapse. But apply the logic of the redacted manuscript, and the filter shifts. The filter is not external. The filter is the containment protocol. Perhaps we are not alone in the universe because of distance, but because we are in quarantine. Perhaps the single idea is so dangerous that any species that discovers it is immediately isolated or self-destructs. What is the nature of this danger? It brings us back to the relationship between mind and matter. Quantum physics has begun to scratch the surface of this with the observer effect, the realization that the active measurement changes the outcome of the experiment. This is the leak in the hull of the scientific materialist worldview. It suggests that consciousness is fundamental, not accidental. If 7 billion human beings focused their consciousness on a single outcome, without the dampening field of civilization, without the distractions of the grid, what would happen? The redacted manuscript suggests we could rewrite the laws of physics. We could dismantle the stars.
We could dream a new universe into being. And that is why we must be asleep. That is why we must be distracted. We are not the powerless victims of a cruel elite. We are the sleeping giants of a cosmic drama. The elites, the architects, the secret societies, they are not the jailers. They are the zookeepers. They are terrified of what happens if the exhibit wakes up. They maintain the illusion of scarcity, the theater of war, the endless cycle of political drama, to keep the collective mind fractured and focused on the trivial. A united human consciousness is a singularity. It is a black hole that would swallow the status quo. Now consider the anomalies, the impossible structures, the megaliths cut with laser-like precision before the invention of the wheel, the maps that show Antarctica without ice. These are not just mysteries, they are residues. They are the leftovers of previous iterations of the simulation that were not fully deleted. They are the fingerprints on the glass. The orthodox historians rush to explain them away, to fit them into the timeline of linear progress. They use the words ritual and ceremonial, like spackle, to cover the cracks, but the cracks remain. The investigation demands that we look at the role of trauma. Trauma fractures the psyche. It creates dissociative states. It makes the subject pliable. Is it a coincidence that the history of civilization is a history of trauma? War, plague, famine, persecution. It is a relentless assault on the human nervous system. A traumatized population is a manageable population. It seeks a savior. It seeks a strong hand. It willingly hands over its sovereignty for the promise of relief. The systematic traumatization of humanity is not a byproduct of our savagery. It is the engineering of our compliance. But there is a countercurrent. There has always been a resistance. It does not fight with swords or guns, for those are the weapons of the cage. It fights with art, with music, with love, with silence. Every time a poet captures a feeling that transcends language, the manuscript is briefly illuminated. Every time a musician hits a chord that makes a stadium of people weep in unison, the containment field flickers. Every time two people fall in love and the world around them disappears, they have created a pocket universe, a temporary autonomous zone where the laws of the architects do not apply. This is why romance is commodified, why art is turned into investment, why music is standardized.
To neutralize the threat, to turn the keys of liberation into mere decorations for the cell. We must speak of the concept of the ego. The ego is the avatar we use to navigate the simulation. It is the construct that says, I am this name, this job, this history. The single idea reveals that the ego is a fiction. It is a mask welded to the face. The spiritual traditions of the East have known this for 5,000 years. They call it Maya, the illusion. But the Western industrial machine has turned the ego into a god. We are taught to cultivate it, to defend it, to inflate it. We are drowning in a culture of narcissism because a narcissist is the perfect prisoner. A narcissist is so obsessed with the reflection in the mirror that they never look out the window to see the bars. The tone of this narrative must remain noir because we are walking through a valley of shadows. We are detecting. We are looking for the smoking gun. And the smoking gun is in your hand. It is the device you are using to read this. It is the network that connects us. The internet was hailed as the ultimate liberation tool, the democratization of information. But watch how it has evolved. It has become the ultimate surveillance state, the ultimate feedback loop of distraction. It is the externalization of the collective subconscious, but it is being mined for data, sold for profit, and algorithms are used to herd our thoughts into echo chambers. It is the Tower of Babel rebuilt with fiber optics. Yet the flaw remains. The system is not perfect. Entropy attacks all closed systems. The cracks are widening. The narrative of endless progress is faltering. The climate is rebelling. The financial systems are revealing themselves as hallucinations of math and faith. The institutions are losing their credibility. We are living in the time of the great unveiling. The redacted manuscript is leaking. We see it in the rise of anxiety, the collective sense of impending doom. This is not the end of the world. It is the end of the illusion of the world. It is the withdrawal symptoms of a species coming off a 10,000-year addiction to artificial order. Let us go deeper into the physiology of the suppression. The pineal gland, the third eye. Biologically, it is a photoreceptive organ in the center of the brain. In many ancient reptiles, it is an actual eye. In humans, it is calcified, dormant. Why? Fluoride in the water, processed foods, the lack of sunlight, the disruption of circadian rhythms.
The biological hardware for higher perception is being systematically degraded. We are being chemically lobotomized. This sounds like paranoia until you look at the toxicology reports, until you look at the rise in chronic autoimmune diseases. The body is attacking itself because it is living in an environment that is hostile to its true nature. The single idea also refrains our understanding of death. In the authorized narrative, death is the end. It is the final blackout. This fear of oblivion drives our accumulation of material goods, our desperate need for legacy. But if consciousness is primary, if the body is merely a receiver, then death is simply the signal moving to a different frequency. The architects cannot control what happens after death, so they must make us terrified of it. They must make us cling to biological life at any cost, even a life of misery and servitude. The denial of death is the cornerstone of the materialist prison. Imagine a civilization built on the acceptance of the single idea. It would not have standing armies. It would not have prisons. It would not have billionaires. It would not have poverty. It would be a civilization of telepathic empathy, of stewardship, of exploration into the inner space as well as the outer. It would be unrecognizable to us. It would look like magic. And that is why it must be suppressed, because compared to that potential, our current civilization is not a triumph. It is a tragedy. It is a stunted, deformed thing, growing in the dark. We are like children playing in a sandbox, unaware that we are sitting on top of a nuclear reactor. The energy is there, humming beneath the sand. Occasionally, someone digs too deep and touches a fuel rod. They burn up. We call them prophets or madmen. We bury them and go back to building our sandcastles. But the sand is getting hot. The reactor is becoming critical. The redacted manuscript is not just a history of the past. It is a warning for the future. The containment field is failing. There is a concept in intelligence circles called the limited hangout. It is when a spy agency reveals a portion of the truth to conceal the larger, more damaging truth. We are seeing limited hangouts everywhere now. The disclosure of UFO phenomenon, the admission of government surveillance, the critique of capitalism in mainstream media. They are giving us crumbs of truth to satisfy our hunger, hoping we won't break down the door to the pantry. They are admitting that
The system is corrupt to prevent us from realizing that the system is artificial. The narrator of this script is not a person. It is a voice arising from the collective dissonance. It is the part of you that knows something is wrong. It is the feeling you get when you look at the stars and feel a terrible, aching homesickness for a place you have never been. That homesickness is the memory of what was taken from us. It is the residual memory of the time before the redaction. Let us scrutinize the concept of money. Money is a sigil magic. It is paper and digital bits that we agree to imbue with value. It has no intrinsic worth. It is a belief system. It is the most successful religion in history. It regulates the flow of energy. It decides who eats and who starves. It is the control collar around the neck of humanity. If we stopped believing in it tomorrow, the palaces of the elites would turn into useless piles of stone. The power is not in the money. The power is in our belief. The single idea exposes money for what it is, a governor on the engine of human creativity. It forces us to channel our vast creative potential into narrow, profitable avenues. How many symphonies were never written because the composer had to work in a cubicle? How many cures were never found because the researcher had to pursue grants? The opportunity cost of our economic system is incalculable. The rain is falling on the pavement of this noir city we are visualizing. The neon signs are reflecting in the puddles. The words obey, buy, sleep flicker in the subconscious. We are the detectives standing on the corner, lighting a cigarette, watching the crowd rush by. They are running to stand still. They are chasing phantoms. The detective knows the truth, but has no one to tell. To speak the single idea is to sound insane. This is the ultimate defense mechanism of the conspiracy. The truth is so vast, so alien to our conditioned reality, that it sounds like fiction.
We must consider the possibility that the Earth itself is a sentient entity, and that civilization is a parasite upon it. The asphalt, the concrete, the deforestation, this is a skin disease. The Earth is trying to shake us off. The natural disasters are the fever dreams of the planet. The redacted manuscript suggests that there was a time when we lived in symbiosis with the planetary consciousness, when we acted as its neural network. But the virus of the ego, the virus of separation, severed that connection. We
Came a cancer, and now the host is undergoing chemotherapy. The silence returns. The prose slows down. We need to sit with the weight of this. It is not a comfortable weight. It is the weight of responsibility. If we are not victims, if we are the co-creators of this prison, then we are the only ones who can dismantle it. There is no rescue ship coming. There is no Messiah. There is only the painful, slow process of waking up. It requires a forensic audit of our own minds. We must look at every belief, every fear, every desire, and ask, is this mine, or was this implanted? Is this a wall, or is this a door? We trace the lineage of the controllers. They are not reptilians. They are not demons. They are humans who have accepted the logic of the machine. They are the trustees of the prison. They are rewarded with the best cells, the best food, the best views, but they are still in prison. They are just as trapped by the fear of the single idea as the lowest serf, perhaps more so, because they know what they have done. They know the extent of the lie, and they know that if the lights ever come on, they will be the first to be judged. The investigation shifts to the nature of myth. Myths are not lies. They are compression algorithms for truth. The story of the fall from Eden, the story of Prometheus stealing fire, the story of the Tower of Babel, these are all garbled transmissions of the redacted manuscript. Eden was the state of non-dual consciousness. The fall was the descent into the ego. Prometheus represents the danger of awakening the latent power. Babel is the fragmentation of the unified mind. We have been telling ourselves the truth in fairy tales because we cannot bear to hear it in plain speech. Listen to the rhythm of the machine. Tick, tock, work, consume, sleep, repeat. It is a hypnotic induction. It is designed to induce a trance state. The breaking of the trance requires a shock. Sometimes that shock is pain. Sometimes it is beauty. Sometimes it is a piece of writing that refuses to follow the rules, that refuses to use headings or bullet points, that refuses to let the reader rest. The relentless flow of words is a technique to overload the critical factor of the brain, to bypass the censor, to pour the information directly into the subconscious. We are approaching the edge of the map. The ancient cartographers used to write, "Here be dragons" on the unexplored territories. They were warning us away. But the dragons are not monsters. Dragons are the guardians of the treasure. The treasure is our own sovereignty. The redacted manuscript is not a book to be found in a dusty library. It is encoded in your DNA. It is written in the stars. It is whispered by the wind. The silence at the center of history is waiting for you to speak into it. The archives are vast, and we have only walked down the first aisle. There are thousands of years of evidence to sift through. We have to look at the burning of the library of Nalanda. We have to look at the witch trials. We have to look at the invention of the television. We have to look at the pharmaceutical industry. We have to look at the education system. Each one is a piece of the puzzle. Each one is a bar in the cell. The picture that emerges is terrifying, yes, but it is also liberating, because if the prison was built, it can be deconstructed. If the story was written, it can be redacted. We can write a new manuscript. Let the rain wash away the grime of the city. Let the neon flicker and die. Let the silence expand. In the silence, we begin to remember. We remember that we are not gears in a machine. We are the fire that fuels it. We are the dreamers of the dream. The single idea is not a weapon, it is a key, and the key is turning in the lock. The door is creaking open. What lies on the other side is not for the narrator to say, it is for you to see. The redacted lines are becoming visible. The black ink is fading. The words are surfacing. They say, you are free. You have always been free. You just forgot to look up. We continue the walk. The pavement turns into dirt, then into grass. The city fades behind us, a glowing tumor on the horizon. We are walking into the dark, but it is not a menacing dark. It is the velvet dark of the womb, of a void, of pure potential. The script does not end here. It circles back, it spirals, it is a loop. Because the investigation never truly ends. The layers of deception are infinite. As soon as you peel back one mask, another is revealed. But with each peeling, the light gets a little brighter. The air gets a little thinner. We are climbing the mountain of truth, and the oxygen is scarce. Breathe. Inhale the cold air of reality. Exhale the stale smoke of the simulation. This is the work. This is the great work of the alchemists, to refine the soul until it shines like gold, to burn away the dross of the conditioning. The redacted manuscript is the manual for this transmutation. It has been hidden, burned,